All right, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you happen to be watching from. I know for some of you, you're on live with me, and for others, you're watching the replay, and I appreciate you being here. This is a topic that I'm excited to cover because it is really one of the primary things you need to do in order to launch a successful audience. I'll say it that way. And then from that, everything can build. So, if you're not familiar with me, my name is Rhonda M. Jordan, and today I'm going to be covering I'm going to give you 10 strategies to repurpose the content that you've created, and I'm also going to give you 5 additional strategies for reusing content. Now, if you're not familiar with why this is such a big idea or why it's really something you want to master, I'm going to cover that as we go through it. But just understand this: if you are starting off new, or if you have been, working to build an online business for a while, the thing that you should be very much aware of is that your content is going to act as the magnet to draw in the audience that you wish to attract. So, this is one where I say not only should you be taking notes, but you should be reviewing the notes on this quite frequently, because you can avoid being on the content creation hamster wheel by using the strategies that I am going to be sharing with you. So before we get started, if you want to say hello and let me know where it is that you are watching from, I'd love to hear that. Hey, Denise, thank you so much for being on with us. And this is definitely a topic that, as I say, I think everybody should not only be familiar with, but they should be using. And I'm going to share some of my own stories, if you will, to really help you understand why this is important. And let's see here, ABE Super Kite Day. Thank you. I appreciate you being on, and I definitely want to share this information so that everybody has the opportunity to benefit from it. I also want to say, if you have any questions as we are going through things, don't hesitate to ask. And then, secondly, if in fact, you think of something, or if there's something you want to jot down from the content, meaning the steps, if you will, just to help others that might be on or perhaps may have missed a step, feel free to do that. So, what I'm going to do is just kind of give you a little bit of an overview about the whole content creation process and why it's so important. So, what I want you to understand is, once you have selected your niche, okay, the next thing you should do is, think about that ideal customer. And let's say you've already figured out who that is. Now, what I want you to do is to focus in on creating content pillars. Content pillars are things that you're going to be talking about on a regular basis that would help your ideal customer, that would answer questions for them, that would give them tips, that would give them strategies, and so forth. And I always suggest having between 3 and 5 content pillars, because if you have 3 to 5, you won't get bored talking about the same thing over and over and over again. Also, you want to think about those content pillars as being things that your ideal customer can benefit from, because the same thing with them. They don't want to hear the same topic discussed over and over and over again. Now, when I say discussed, understand that that could be in the form of videos, it could be in the form of reels or short form videos. It could be in the form of posts that you're going to create on social media. It could be blog posts. And some of you might be saying, blog posts, is that really a thing? Yeah, it really is. Now, think of all the people who are going to Substack now, and they are creating content there. So, what was old at one point is now new again. So don't rule out, posting on something like that as well. You also have things like Reddit posts and so forth. But with Reddit, that's not really a place where you're likely to build a huge audience. You may get discovered there, but then you're going to have to move them back to your primary platform, which brings me to another point. You should be creating content on a single platform until you get that platform mastered. And I would go so far as to say, until you have at least a virtual assistant or somebody else that can help you. I'm reading a book, and I'm going to list it in my. It's definitely listed in my Amazon store, which is called Ready, Fire, Aim. And in this book, the author speaks specifically about focusing on, one way of distribution, if you will. In our world, that's going to be one platform. And it's because if you're attempting to build on multiple platforms as a solopreneur, remember a solopreneur is a one person business owner, and you're trying to be consistent and you're trying to build an audience, that is extremely difficult to do. And quite frankly, it's going to probably burn you out. So I suggest building on one platform alone. And you pick the platform that you know for a fact you enjoy being on, but also and importantly, that you know for a fact your ideal customer hangs out on. Okay. All right, so let's see here. I'm going to just grab a couple of things. You plan on selling a digital product, a video tutorial about snow cutting. That's awesome. It's going to take a long time to edit, but it's going to be worth it. Absolutely. That sounds like an awesome thing there. So I appreciate you sharing that with me. So what I want to do is get into the content now because, as I said, you're going to focus in on this one platform. And what you're going to find is if your ideal customer, if you verified that they're there, now the only thing you have to do is get content out there that's going to draw them in. And trust and believe they are there and they will find you. It may take a little time for them to find you. But the algorithm on the platform that you decide to build on is going to serve up enough of your content, provided you've taken the time to put some thought into things that people want to learn, people are struggling with, and so forth. That content's eventually going to get served up to a number of people that fall right into your ideal customer. All right. So, with that being said, as I mentioned, if you have any questions as we're going through this, by all means, share, definitely put that into the comments and I'll answer those questions. Now, I want to share my own story with you. When you are thinking about building, as I said, you have to select a platform. I chose YouTube. And I chose it for a couple of reasons. Number one, I've had a YouTube channel since back in 2010. I abandoned that channel for years. But you know what was crazy? Was with the content that I had created 10 years ago, I was still getting views. And it was because YouTube was serving it up. So when I made the decision back in about 2022 or so that I was going to start building an online business, I knew I was going to do it using YouTube as my traffic source. Okay. Now, I will tell you, when I first started building, it took a while to build things, no question about it. And so when I got serious about it, I think my channel had grown from like zero to like 900 subscribers. I don't even know how that happened, considering the channel was basically abandoned. But the reason why it happened, I do know why it happened, and it was because I had created evergreen content. Specifically, I had created tutorials, okay? And the thing about it is when people want to learn to do something, they go to YouTube. There's just no way around it. They may Google, but a lot of times because people are visual, they go to YouTube. So I say all that to say, once I realized that, I knew the type of content that I was going to be creating. I knew who my ideal customer was. I had identified my niche and so forth. And so I just put some effort into it. And then the channel, I want to say I'd have to go back and pull my stats, but long story short, it ended up growing to about 4,000 subscribers by the end of 2024. And then last year, I ended with just shy of 8,000 subscribers. So in 1 year, with really a very limited activity on my channel last year because of a lot of stuff that was going on, I really built the channel or got it to a point where it doubled in size. So why am I telling you that? If you have not yet decided on the platform that you want to build on, let me try to convince you to use YouTube, because no matter who your audience is, YouTube can help you find them. The other reason why I really push YouTube as a platform is it acts as a search engine, and content that you create can be relevant for years to come. Give me one second. Remember, I mentioned those videos that I created years ago? And we're still getting views. That shows you that YouTube is a great platform. Now, if YouTube's not your thing and you just don't want to do it and you've selected another platform, by all means, go for it. Just know that you want to make sure that you're creating content that is relevant for the platform. And let's say, for example, Instagram is your platform. Well, you can post on YouTube, on Instagram. You can also do reels. One of the things that Meta, which owns, Facebook and Instagram, is doing is they're really pushing reels. So I would encourage you to use the type of content that the platform you're on is really pushing. It's only going to help you. All right. So let's see here. Denise says, I created my digital product with an order bump. Awesome. I am so excited about that. And I'm going to have to touch base with you afterwards to find out a little bit more, because I'd love to hear what you ended up doing. And getting it formatted is really that's really pretty simple to do. So now you just need the content that's going to push people to that lead magnet or to the digital product. So I'm excited to hear about that as well. All right, so let's talk content now. As I mentioned, use the content that the platform that you're on is really pushing. All right. So one of the things that you're going to find is you're going to create content, and some of it's going to do well, and some of it is just flat out going to flop. There's just no way around it. Once again, that does not mean that you're a failure. It just means that that piece of content didn't work at that particular time. Maybe you can rework it and get it to actually work if it's presented in a different format. All right. So now the other thing that I want to spend most of this training on is talking to you about repurposing. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to give you 10 strategies on how to repurpose content, but I want to also share with you just a couple of things. One, a misconception. Repurposing does not mean just simply copying and pasting everything, that piece of content everywhere. That's not really what I mean. For example, if I'm going to repurpose a piece of content, oftentimes what I will do is I'll change the hook on it. I will change the colors on it. I'll change the message slightly, meaning the wording on it. So it is still the same message, but presented in a different way. So just remember, we're not necessarily talking copying and pasting, and certainly not doing that all over the place. The other thing is, one of the best things you can do is take a piece of content and present it in a couple of different formats. And I'm going to give you a strategy that I think is going to really help you as we go through this. And then just understand that with your content strategy, whatever it is, you can avoid the hamster wheel by simply using good strategies as it relates to repurposing. All right, so now let's go ahead and let's get into the 10 ways that you can actually repurpose your content. All right, so let's say that you create a long form video. One of the things that you can do is to present that in such a way that it can then be chopped up into smaller pieces. And then those pieces can either be presented as short form videos. Now, I'm going to use, for example, I'm going to use YouTube because that's the one I use more than anything. So you could actually take that long form video and chop it up, and it can become shorts. Now, just, for those of you that may not know the language on YouTube, think of shorts the same as you would reels on Instagram or Facebook. So you could chop it up that way. Another thing that you could do with those different videos or whatever, or with that long form video, I'm sorry, is to present it in such a way that each of the tips that you cover becomes a different piece of content. Now, let me go back and give you the strategy because I think if I give you the strategy, it will help you understand better how you can then repurpose. All right, so the strategy is going to be whatever your chosen format is. So if it's a video, if it is a blog post, whatever it is, okay? What you're going to do is to come up with 3 to 5 tips that you're going to include in that long form video. Okay. Now, or if it's a blog post, 3 to 5 tips that are going to be included in the blog post. All right. Now, the next thing that you're going to do is each of those strategies, you're going to further break them down in such a way that you can present them as individual pieces of content. So, if I were doing a long form video, I would structure it in such a way that each of those 3 to 5 points, can very easily be selected so that they can easily be chopped up and put aside. If I were going to be doing a blog post, I would present it so that the tip was going to be, for example, the headline, if you will, or what do they call it, like a subheadline within your blog post. And then that subheadline, each of those subheadlines can then become a separate piece of content. All right, that will make more sense as we start going through the rest of the strategies here. All right, now another thing that you can do is you can take that video or that blog post and you can turn it into an email. And if you've been on the last two different live trainings that I've done, I've talked a lot about creating a lead magnet, and then secondly, the importance of having an email list. So you can very easily rework that content and turn it into a full blown email message. One of the ways that you can do that, and a simple way to do it, is if you are using ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude or whichever your chosen AI is, what you can do is let's just say it's a video. You can give Claude the transcript of that video and say, what I would like to do with this is I would like to turn this into a 600 word email message that's going to go out to my audience. I really only want to cover 1 or 2 of the tips because, again, in 600 words, you probably can't cover everything that you covered in a 10-minute video. So tell them I only want to cover point number 1 and point number 2, and I need you to turn that into a email message. So it will go to work on it. AI will go to work, but you're going to have to work with it, meaning that whatever it spits out, don't assume you can just simply pass that off as an email message. You're going to have to work with it, wordsmith it. It's probably not going to sound like you, especially if you have not taken the time to train your AI. And that's a whole different training I'll have to do at some point. You have to, so I'm just saying, just don't take what it spits out and simply paste that into your email service provider and send it out. You're definitely going to have to work it. But just understand that if you had 5 points in your video, now you can go back later and say, okay, now what I want to do is maybe a month down the road, I want to cover points 3 and 4 in an email and have it write you another email covering the additional points. So if you notice, it's the same content. What you're doing is just presenting it. Or if you really want to stretch the content out, just tell it to write an email on each of the individual points. So if you had 5 points, now that's 5 separate emails that could go out. Now, again, you're not going to send them back to back, meaning, I wouldn't send it today. Let's say Tuesday is your normal day that you send out an email, I wouldn't turn around and send that same point next week, or not the same point, but the same concept next week. I would wait a couple of weeks or maybe a month and send it out. So because remember, you also have if you've taken the time to come up with your content pillars, hopefully you have 3 to 5 solid pillars. So when you're sending email messages out, you can be sending it out over, various topics. All right. Okay. Now, Another thing that you can do is to take your videos, I'm sorry, and turn them into social media posts. Now, remember, I talked about you have this video that has 5 points. So, what you can individually do for is create social media posts that cover each of the individual points as separate pieces of content. So, point number one, you could write a hook, you could write the main point, if you will, and then you could have a call to action. That would be a piece of content. Then, point number two, you turn around and do the same thing. And once again, you're going to mix this up because when you're creating content, the most important thing is let's say, for example, you're using the post page on YouTube, which would be similar to like your Facebook post page or your Instagram feed. All right. Now, what you want to do is mix it up so that it's not strictly the same thing all the way down. So, in this example, what I would do is cover point number one, and maybe that goes out on Tuesday. And then, Friday, you cover point number two. You figure out what days work best for you, but just know that each of those individual points can then become a social media post. So just know that that is definitely a way for you to actually be able to repurpose this content. Now, here's the way I would do it. I would take one tip, and there's so many different ways that you can present a tip. So, if that one tip is point number one, then maybe what you do is you could set it up as a poll. And you just rework it so that you'd say, this is a tip that most people don't know, or some people may know. Do you agree with it? And you have a poll that's yes or no. Or you could have a tip, that same tip, and you could simply say, this is one of the things that tripped me up when I was first getting started. And it's this tip. And then the second part of it could then be, and this is how I was able to implement it. And now it has allowed me to do X, Y, and Z. Okay. So definitely wanted to put that out there. Now, another thing is if you have a quote. Now, we're talking still about those same points, and this is a video to a social media post. Another thing you could do is come up with a quote that relates to that tip or that point. Okay. And now you have the quote, and you could say, and this is how I was able to implement it. That's another social media post. So just know that you could do that. Another way that you could present each of those tips is kind of like an aha moment. Okay. So this would be once I learned this, my entire business changed. And it's that tip. And then you talk a little bit more about it in your caption for that. So just know there's so many different ways. So from that video to social media post, you could pull out the tips, you could pull out a quote, you could pull out an aha moment. You can do so many different things with that alone. All right. Now, another thing that you can do is you can take an email, and I do this a lot. I'll write an email and then I will pull the individual pieces or components that I've covered in that email out. And what I'll do is I'll turn them into multiple posts. One of the best things that you can do, and you don't have to do this, but if you like this type of content, it works well, which is you could create a carousel post. And a carousel post is nothing more than a series of posts that are connected. So there's usually a hook on the very first post. And then when people swipe, they'll see something about, something else you're sharing about it. And then they swipe again and they'll see another post, but they're all connected. So a carousel post could be a great way to repurpose content that you have included in an email message. All right. So you can also take some of the content from your email and you could just turn it into a simple text post. Keep in mind that every piece of content that you create doesn't have to be a video. People still enjoy reading. Not everyone, but a lot of people still enjoy reading, and they'll read a text post. And it could just be a shortened version of that email with a call to action, let's say. And I would probably have some type of hook because, you really kind of need a hook. Then you can give your lesson and then you can have your call to action. Remember, your call to action is just what you want people to do next. So that could be, if you like this type of content, then subscribe to my channel. If, you want to learn more, you want to go deeper with this, I have a lead magnet, and then you point them to a lead magnet. So there are a lot of different ways that you can take that email message that you generated and turn it into content. All right. So just to summarize that, an email to social media, and you could break it up into multiple posts. You could do a carousel post. You can even do several text posts. So that would be another way to do it. Now, another thing, and this is actually something you're going to see me do more of, because last year I spent a lot of time doing live streams every Wednesday for the most part. I might have missed 2 or 3 Wednesdays in there. But what I can tell you is there was a lot of live streams covering my specific content pillars. So what you can do is you can take live streams and you can turn them into evergreen content. Now, this is the way I would do it. I would take that live stream and I wouldn't just simply, download it and then re-upload it to YouTube. I wouldn't do that. What I would do is I would simply record the equivalent of about a 10-minute video. It doesn't have to be 10 minutes. It could be a little bit less. It could be a little bit more that covers 1 or 2 of the points. You don't have to cover all. Like, for example, if I was going to do a evergreen piece of content on this, what I would do is I wouldn't cover all 10 points in the video. I might cover 3 points. I might cover 5 points or something like that, which would then allow me to be able to create another evergreen video that I could cover, let's say, the other 5 points. So hopefully you're seeing how that can all come together, because if you're implementing the strategies that we're talking about here, you should never run out of content ideas. Okay. Now, another thing is this: even though live streams don't expire, a lot of times, because when they look at it, for example, with this one and most of the live streams that I do, they're going to end up being about an hour long. Well, everybody doesn't want to watch a 1 hour piece of content. They don't want to watch a 1 hour video. So if I break it up into shorter, or create a video that's shorter, 10 minutes long, 15 minutes long, people will watch some or all of that. Same thing with you. So think about how you can take those live streams and turn them into evergreen pieces of content. Now, if you've never heard the term evergreen, that just simply means something that people will be looking for years to come. If you remember, I mentioned a little while ago that I had created some videos that were tutorials that people were still watching, and my channel was really just kind of sitting idle. It was like tumbleweeds flowing through, because I, for years, did not create any content. But then when I came back and I started creating evergreen content and searchable content and so forth, what that allowed me to do was to rebuild the channel. So please don't underestimate the power of evergreen content. That is content that people are going to be continuously looking for. So just know that those pieces of evergreen videos that you create, they could very easily become searchable depending on the title that you use. That could be something that ends up, showing up in the YouTube browse category, if you will, which simply means it's going to be presented to people that are not necessarily part of your current audience. And what that is going to do is to give you the opportunity to actually have people discover you. And quite honestly, with most of the content that I created that allowed me to double in size, it was content that people were either searching for, or it was discoverable content that YouTube presented to them. I'm sharing my story because if it works for me, it'll work for you. You just have to put the energy and attention into it. All right. So another thing that I would tell you to do is to take those evergreen videos that, remember, are all part of what you pulled from your live stream. Remember, those topics should then be related, and put them into a playlist, because if someone watched one video, they may very well be interested in watching the next video, which is point number 2. And then the next one, which is point number 3, and so forth. And what you'll find is the more content of yours that people consume, the more they get to develop that know, like, and trust factor. And what almost happens is it almost becomes like Netflix bingeable content. And I've had numerous people comment under one of my videos to say, I've watched 6 of your videos, in a row. I've watched this, or I went through your entire ebook playlist so I could learn how to not only create an ebook, write an ebook, but create it and sell it and so forth. That's what you want to happen. And so when you take those lives and break them down, that could very easily become great content. Now, another thing is your live streams. I'm assuming you're doing lives. Let's say you're doing lives on Instagram, for example. Well, if you are on for an extended period of time, same thing. Just record some shorter videos, some reels, and those, in fact, can become additional pieces of content that are going to be shared. Now, one of the reasons, and I know you can use like Opus Clip and that, and if that works for you, by all means do it. Opus Clip will allow you to take a long form video, and what it will do is it will go through and it will chop up the content into smaller pieces, and then it will assign a score and so forth. And then you can decide whether or not you want to upload that. The great thing about it is it's all done with AI, so you don't have to do a lot with it. Now, some people love Opus Clip, others not so much. So that's why I'm saying you may want to just take that live that you did on Instagram and just turn around and record, some 30-second reels, or, 40-second reels, or 10-second reels, or some silent reels with the wording coming across the top. That's another very effective tool. And then have just some type of, sound in the background, trending sound that's going to work for you. All right. So let's see here. All right. Any other question? Let's see here. Denise, this is some of you have heard me say this is my sister-in-law. She has a channel that's nearly at 100,000. It may be at 100,000 subscribers now. And she's saying that she has evergreen content that's still getting views 7 years later. That's the beauty of evergreen content. And I think evergreen content should definitely be a part of your content strategy. So don't rule that out. Don't assume everything that you do has to be, trending, or, something like that, because people, if it's evergreen, people are going to constantly be searching for it. All right. Now, the next thing, number 6, and let me just go back and summarize everything. So, the first of the 10 practical ways to repurpose is long form to short form. So, turning a YouTube into shorts and so forth. The second one is taking a video and turning it into an email message. Or several email messages. Number 3 is taking a video and turning it into social media post. And that's where I gave you, for example, you could pull out one tip, one quote, one aha moment, and so forth. Number 4 is taking an email message and turning it into social media content. And so you could take that, take it and break it up into multiple posts, carousels, or even a text post. Number 5 was the live stream to evergreen. Okay. All right. Number 6 is taking content and turning it into lead magnet ideas. I absolutely love this one, because when you start to find that, a piece of content is getting traction, meaning that, people are saving it, they're sharing it, they're liking it, they're commenting on it, that's a piece of content that your audience is signaling to you that they, in fact, want more of. Also, what's happening is it's signaling to the algorithm of the platform you're on, hey, this is great content. People are interacting with it. So share it with more people. So that's why I'm saying this is a great way to help you determine what your lead magnet could be. So you could very easily pull out, if it was like this video that we're going through with these 10 points, I could pull out, five of the points, as I mentioned, and I could create a lead magnet around it. It could be a checklist if I wanted to do all 10 points. It could be a guide if I only want to cover five of the points or three of the points or whatever. So just understand you can definitely take your content and turn it into lead magnets. The other thing I want to say to you is this: if you start getting the same questions on a regular basis, and this will happen as your audience begins to grow, that is probably time or a signal that you need to create a lead magnet on that because people are interested in it. And so, if in fact you need to learn how to create a lead magnet, what I want you to do is to go back to the live stream that I did last week, and I want you to watch that where I walk you through it. And then the week prior to that, I believe I covered setting up email messages or something like that. I think the whole email strategy. So it's like I have to go back and look at my notes to see what all I covered there. But just remember, repeated questions and content are lead magnet opportunities. All right, now another one, number 7, is frequently asked questions can become content series. So, as I mentioned, you're going to start getting questions from your audience. Even if it hasn't happened yet, just keep posting content. It will eventually happen as your audience starts to grow. And when you start getting one question, that might be a single post that you do. When you get multiple questions about a specific topic, now we're talking about you might need to do, or you could benefit from doing a series on it. Now, what is a series? It's just basically, like, think of it as a playlist where you talk about one topic, then you move on to the next topic, and then you move on to the third topic, and then the fourth topic, and so forth. I mentioned to you my ebook playlist. That started off as a single video, and then I added a second video at the request of someone in my audience. And then I added a third video, and then I'm like, you know what, this now needs to become a playlist. And that's where I was saying what happens is people will watch the first video, and then if you make reference to the next video by a call to action, now you can say, if you like this, you're definitely going to want to watch this next video where I talk about whatever it is. And so that's how you can start stringing content together. So just remember, multiple questions can end up being a full series of content for you. And a full series doesn't necessarily have to be videos. It could be a 5-day challenge that gets served up, or a 5-day course, let me say it that way, that gets sent to people via email. So each day, they get each day for 5 days, they're going to receive an email message from you, and you're going to cover those individual components. So just know that there's lots of different ways you can do that. You could also do a challenge. A 5-day challenge would be a great way to also, handle that. So just think of that as a way to have additional content. And the thing about a 5-day challenge, if you've ever participated in one, you know that for 5 days, you're going to have some type of information presented to you. Typically, by the end of the 5th day or 4th day, you start introducing the product itself. Most people will start, kind of talking about it about the 3rd day. They're starting to talk about a digital product that they have, and then they launch it on day number 4, and they're still giving value. And day number 5, they're still getting value, but they might throw in something else. Now, why am I even telling you about this? Because the thing about a 5-day challenge is once you create it, you can run that thing over and over and over again. And the way that I would do it is maybe you run it once a month. Maybe you run it once a quarter. Maybe you run it once every 6 months. You get to decide, and you don't have to worry about recreating the content because you've already created it once. You're just simply going to serve it up the next time. And one easy way to do that is you could set up a Facebook group, for example, and once the 5 days is over, then you just simply close the group so that no one else can actually become part of it. And then when you're ready to run the challenge again, what you do is remove all the previous members. You would start to promote the challenge. And then when you're ready for people to start signing up, you just reopen the group again. Now, you're going to end up having to go back through and post the same content that you had previously, but you'll post it one day at a time. So hopefully that gives you another idea of how you can reuse content. And that a 5 day challenge can be very valuable to people. So definitely make sure that you think about that if in fact you like that type of content. All right, now number 8 is going to be your content. Comments and DMs can become content as well. You're going to have people that are going to send you messages, and they may have a question about it, and you're going to about something, and you're going to realize if they have a question about it, I bet somebody else in my audience has the same question. So that could become a piece of content that you could create as well. Also, as I mentioned to you, comments. I had someone under one of my videos comment and say, would you mind making a video on a flip book? I had never even thought about making a flip book. And so I did. And that became one of my most successful videos. And once again, that was a suggestion that came through a comment from one of my subscribers. So just know that that type of thing can be very valuable to you. So don't ignore those comments that people have. Go back in, read them, respond to them. And then if in fact they're specifically asking for something, and it's something that you feel comfortable creating, well, maybe that becomes a new piece of content. It could be a video, it could be a reel, it could be whatever, whatever it is that you're comfortable doing. All right. Okay. Number 9. And with number 9, this is going to be tutorials, taking tutorials and turning them into checklists. Because remember, if you've created a video and people have watched it and they benefited from it, they may want to have a checklist that they can keep, on the side of their desk or on their refrigerator that allows them to go through the steps that you covered in the tutorial. Because remember, everybody doesn't want to have to go back and watch an entire video in order to get the steps. So by you creating a checklist, that could be very handy for them. Another thing is taking those tutorials and maybe you turn it into a short guide that they can, have readily available and they can easily refer to. So that could be a great way, to constantly be in their ears, because if it's a topic that they want to, or something that they're going to be using on a regular basis, they're going to go back to that guide. They're going to go back to that checklist on a regular basis. And so now they're remembering that that was you that actually shared that content as well. And remember, with the guide and the checklist, I would turn those into something that they could download, which means it's essentially a lead magnet. So you're going to be capturing their email address. And so now you have the opportunity on a regular basis, as you're sending out your weekly emails, to be connecting with them. But they also have this very valuable guide. And it had to have been valuable because they would not have given you their email address unless they felt it was valuable. So, definitely tutorials to checklists or tutorials to guides. All right. And then another thing is taking older content that you've created, and maybe you put a twist on it. Maybe you share it in a different way. So, for example, you could take content that you created. Let's go back to January 2025 at the beginning where you were sharing something. And if that content did well, or you think maybe it didn't do exceptionally well because your audience was smaller, and that's okay, then what you're going to do is just turn around, put a new twist on it, talk about, 2026, talk about something different, and present it this year. So that could be something else. The other thing would be new lessons learned. Maybe you presented a piece of content, but since that time, you've learned something new, or you've come up with a different way to do it. Or maybe now you're going to show them how they can use or do whatever it is you wanted to teach them, but they can incorporate AI into it. So just know there's so many different ways that you can actually cover all of this and, definitely use it. Now, another thing I will tell you is this in terms of repurposing your content is, just think of it in terms of also being able to look at how it might best be presented. So that's why I say, sometimes maybe you need to just engage with people. Can you turn it into a poll, for example? And it needs to be a simple poll. Can you, make it into, um, I don't know, like a multiple choice type question, a fill in the blank type post that you might create. So just kind of allow your thoughts to become a little bit more creative in terms of how you can actually reuse that or repurpose that content. All right. Now, let's see here. Okay. So Denise said that's been my struggle in creating lead magnets. I tell you, usually when you're creating a lead magnet and you're struggling with it, you're probably simply overthinking it. Just remember, what is the problem that the person has, and then what is your solution to it? What's your easy way around it? Connect with them, let them know, hey, I used to do that as well. I used to run into this problem as I was going through it, but I figured out a way to solve it. I've taught it to other people. It's worked for them. So I want to share it with you. And, just don't overthink it. And remember, if a lead magnet is simply not performing, then you can always just stop promoting it and create a new one. That would be another thing. And the other thing I would say is with your first lead magnets, like we talked last week, they need to be simple, something you can create really in just a couple of hours and get them up and ready to go. I don't want you to spend, hours upon hours creating a lead magnet. Remember, it's focused on one problem and one problem only that you're going to be solving. If you find that you're starting to veer off into different directions from that one problem, those probably need to be other lead magnets or perhaps even digital products or maybe a master class or something like that. So keep it simple when you're creating your lead magnets. And I think the thing to keep in mind is done is much better than trying to be perfect with it, which is what a lot of us struggle with. We struggle with wanting it to be the absolute beautiful and the best and have all of this stuff. People just want a simple solution to their problem. So that's why I was saying, like a checklist, oftentimes is a great solution for a lead magnet because people want something simple. They want to be able to say, oh, that's right. I remember in that video they talked about this, but I forgot that step. If it's in a checklist, then all they have to do is just, follow the steps in that order. So just kind of keep that in mind. All right. Okay. So now what I want to do is move into and give you 5 simple ways to reuse content without sounding repetitive. So, the first thing I want you to do is when you have a piece of content, change the angle. You don't always have to do this, but sometimes if you're just going to reuse it, just switch it up a little bit. Come at it from a different direction. So, let's say, for example, somebody wants to learn photography and they're trying to, maybe you've already created a book on your favorite camera or something like that. I don't know, not a book, but a guide. And maybe now, you want to come at it from a different direction. So you might say, hey, are you thinking about, becoming a photographer? Well, if so, I've come up with a guide that will walk you through what I believe to be the perfect camera. And what you're going to be able to do after going through this guide is you're going to know, the settings that you need to have in place to take an incredibly, great picture, or the settings you need to have in place in order to record your first video. So again, keep it tight in terms of what it is you're going to be covering or the problem you're going to be solving. That's the way I would do it. Okay. Now, so like I said, just change the angle up. That is definitely going to be a way to do it. Another thing is change the format. So, for example, if in fact you're going to be presenting that content, if you presented it, let's say, as a picture, essentially, like I do this a lot where I'll take a picture and then I'll put in Canva like a colored square, and then I'll put the wording in. Well, one of the things I could do is I could change out the color, I could change out the picture, I could reword it, I could use a different hook. So, all of those are different ways that you can present content, basically using the same thing. All right. The next thing would be if, in fact, you went through and let's say you presented something and you only covered a small portion of it. Well, maybe you can go a little bit more in depth. Same content, you're just simply presenting it in greater detail. So that's another way to actually reuse the content. Maybe what you do is before you just wrote a text post, well, maybe now you do a step by step type thing. So that could be another way to actually reuse that same content. And then the other thing could be just changing the example that you used. So if in fact you used an example and it was a great example, switch it up. What other things can you do? Now, another way that you can use an example is you could, let's say you helped one of your audience members solve an issue, then ask them permission and maybe you change their name, change the names to protect the innocent, and you use their example, the thing that they were struggling with, and you'd say, "Hey, I was working with one of my one of the people in my audience. Her name is Helen. And Helen was having trouble with A, and this is what we did." So, instead of it previously being presented as, "Hey, this is something I struggled with, and this is what I did." Now you're talking about somebody else. Maybe their example is different than yours. It likely is. And you can present that as well. So, the other thing would be changing, and I don't really push this much, but, changing the platform. And when I say changing the platform, here's what I mean, because again, I'm big on staying on a single platform. On YouTube, for example, there is the community post page, and then there is the place where you would upload your videos, and then there's a place that you can do shorts. So if I were going to change the platform and I had presented something as a long form video, I would probably turn around and post it on the community page, or perhaps create a short about it. But I'm going to stay on the same platform. And that's what I would encourage you to do. If you were on Instagram, well, maybe you had previously created that piece of content as a reel. Well, now maybe what you can do is post it or create an actual post. And that would be similar to what I was referring to, where I said, you have a picture background, you put a square, you type in the message, and then that goes in. Same platform, just presented in a different way. Or you could even use your stories platform. So on Instagram, maybe what you do is, you present it in such a way that it's now going to be featured as a story as opposed to a text post. So hopefully this gives you a number of examples on how you can not only repurpose content, but also how you can reuse content. And the last thing I want to share with you about the repurposing and reusing, if you in fact had created content, let's say in October of last year, well, new people have likely joined your audience that have never seen that content. Post it again. And another reason why you shouldn't be uncomfortable posting it is if you look at most of the algorithms that are, on these different platforms, a very small percentage of your audience, your existing audience, is even seeing the content. And when I say small, I'm talking like 3 to 4%. So even if you turn around and post the exact same thing, there's a very good possibility that people in your audience have never seen that piece of content. And then, of course, you have the opportunity to also reach new people that are finding you as a result of content that you've presented. So, all of those things just kind of work hand in hand in terms of being able to do it. I want you to be able to incorporate repurposing and reusing as part of your content strategy, simply because if you don't know me, you should get to know that I don't believe in the hustle culture, meaning that we have to be working 24/7. I want you to create content that's going to work for you when you need to take a break, or when you want to take a break, or for example, over, if you're taking vacation with your family, or you're taking off, let's say the last 2 weeks of December. Well, you can, with a good content strategy, if let's say it's the last 2 weeks of December, take some content you posted previously and schedule it out each of the days you're going to be taking vacation. Same thing with a vacation that you have, let's say in the summer. Find some content that did well and schedule it so that it's going to automatically post during the time that you're away. If you ever get sick and you need to take time off, this is your strategy. Take content and put it into the various all of the Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. They all have a way that you can schedule content and have it automatically post. And so that way you still have content that's going out. And as I said, don't forget to check those comments and your private messages, your DMs, because you may have content ideas sitting in there that are coming from people in your audience. All right. So, all of this is going to allow you to be consistent. It's going to allow you to continue to grow. It's going to help you avoid burnout, which is a big thing because a lot of creators who are trying to post on multiple platforms and trying to create brand new stuff every single day, they burn out. And so we want to avoid all of that by building breaks into our schedule, using content that we've already created and making it work for us so that, we can live our lives without being, constantly looking at our phones or thinking of content ideas. Now, the last thing I want to share with you about this is make sure you create a content bank. And I don't know if you've ever heard of a content bank, but let me give you some ideas of what you would put into that. So, what I would suggest doing is taking pictures of yourself that are going to appear in pieces of content that you're going to create. So maybe you have one day where you take an hour, because this doesn't have to take a lot of time. You set up your camera or your phone, whatever it is, and you take pictures. And then you take those pictures and you put them in what I call a content bank. So this could actually be like a project management tool. I use ClickUp. You could put it into Trello. You could put it into Notion. You could even use a folder on your laptop, for example. That would be one way to do it. Another thing I would suggest you do is, if in fact you create reels, then create 10 or 15 pictures of you, or videos of you. And maybe those videos are you working, you sitting at your desk, you reading a book, things that could run for maybe 5 to 8 seconds, and store those videos, because that way, when you get ready to create pieces of content, you can pull from the pictures, you can pull from those short video clips, and now those can be used as, pieces of content that you're going to create. You can also think about some behind the scenes types of things that you can create as well, and put those into your content bank. And then you pull all this stuff together, and now when you sit down and you're ready to create content, you've got it. And then you remember what you posted, and then you're going to use it at some point in the future. All right. So hopefully this has been helpful. If it's been helpful to you, let me know. Give me some thumbs up or ask some questions. By all means, I always say, I always want you to share it with somebody else that this could benefit, because you never know what someone is struggling with and how the information might be able to be helpful to them as well. All right. Okay. So before we actually wrap up, I always like to close with just a little bit of mindset training, because we can have the best digital products. We can have, the greatest content ideas, but sometimes our minds have the ability to start making us doubt ourselves and so forth. So I always cover a little bit of mindset training as we go through this. And today's topic is real simple, and it is that your progress is going to come from execution, not being perfect. And so I always like to say, getting it done is so much better than trying to make it perfect, trying to come up with 15 different iterations of it, and, making sure it's professionally designed or whatever it is. Just get it done and get it out there. You'd be surprised how unattractive pieces of content can do exceptionally well, because oftentimes it's not about how great it looks. It's all about how it resonates with the people in your audience. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't spend time creating, great looking content, but I'm just saying that should not be the most important thing. All right. And so this is how perfection shows up. Okay. So if any you're doing any of these things, this might be you needing to have a conversation with yourself. So one is overthinking. The other is endless tweaking. I have been guilty of both of these. Okay. And then the third thing is waiting for the right time. When's the right time? The right time is right now. So that's why I want you to get it done. Done is so much better than perfect. And then just remember, you can't even work on improving something you haven't released, because that's our whole thing. We release it, we get feedback, and then we improve it. That's how we want to operate. And then the last thing I would say is, just getting it done and getting it out there is going to allow you to get data or feedback from your audience. And that data is going to give you clarity. That's where people are going to say, I love what you had, but I didn't quite understand this. Or I'm not really sure what you were covering, where you were going when you covered this point. That is feedback. That's what we need. So now we can go back, we can make it clearer, we can adjust it, we can make, the necessary changes so that it works. But if we never get it out there because we have fallen into this trap of perfectionism, you're never going to get it done. And so when I'm speaking to you, no, I'm speaking to myself as well, because I've definitely been guilty of some of these things. But I want this year to be the year that you just say, you know what, I'm getting it out there. I'm going to release it. I will make a necessary adjustments as I receive feedback, and then I will re release it. That's the way you operate, because here's the thing you're going to find with a lot of creators who have, made seven figures in a year. One thing that I can tell you is they started messy. They didn't worry about things. They were scrappy. They just got stuff done, and then they fixed things later. And so that's what we have to do. We have to adopt that mentality that we're going to be scrappy. So even if you don't think you have all of the tools you need, get scrappy. Figure out how you can get it done with what you have. And also, if you don't feel that you're a graphic designer, most of us aren't, do the best you can, because remember, it's all about the content. That's what people are most interested in, and you can always fix it at a later date. All right. So the other thing is, execution is going to build confidence, and then, progress is really going to be measured by, those consistent steps. That's where you're going to be able to look back and say, I was here, but now I'm here. And it's because I did this, 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 and this. All right. So, just wanted to make sure that I went through and covered those with you. Make sure that, you are tracking the content that you are creating to see what is performing best, what you could actually rework and get back out there again. All those things are going to help you. And just remember, all of this content being out there on a regular basis is what is going to not only take you from no subscribers or followers to a growing audience, and great content that you keep putting out there is what's going to continue to grow your audience overall. All right, so with that, we are going to wrap things up. I appreciate you being here live, and for those of you that are watching the replay, thank you so much as well. I always say if you have any topics you'd like for me to cover, if they fall under the umbrella of, content creation or email marketing, digital products, or affiliate marketing, drop that in. I haven't done a lot in affiliate marketing yet this year. Obviously, we're only a few weeks in, but that will be covered as well as we start going through things. So, once again, thank you for being here. I always like to tell you to have an awesome day and an even better week. And I will see you back here next week, Wednesday, 12 p.m. noon Eastern Time. So, take care and have an amazing day. Bye.